Hi, my name is Ann Wilmoth. I am 34 years old and I live in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in a small town called Manistee. I was sexually assaulted and kidnapped in the summer of 2017. I began going to church as a young child with my aunt. My mom and dad were not involved in going to church. And as I grew up, I began to go with a neighbor friend, with my brother as well, and went for a few years and didn't feel quite comfortable being there as my parents weren't there with me. But as time passed, I had went back as a teenager. I went through what they call an altar call, going through the prayer of salvation many times, but it never was a heart change for me until the age of 15, when I was able to sit down with my youth pastor at the time to talk more about Christ and more of what I can do to follow him. So in August 29th, 2004, I was able to give my life to Christ. And ever since that day, I have done like a 180 and followed him in every way possible that would lead me on to the next chapter in my life. Before everything happened, I was living in Houston, Texas, and the big city for me was just too stressful, and I was ready for a life change. So I had decided to go move to the Upper Peninsula, a place I'm very familiar with growing up and going there each summer with the kids to visit for family vacation. I never knew what my faith would be tested when I moved to the Upper Peninsula, and how something as such a horrific event that happened in my life would put me to put all my faith into God and have him rescue me from that situation. Before the incident happened the previous day, a coworker of mine had invited me to go fishing in a nearby lake, and I was very open to doing that. I was new to the area and just wanting to meet new acquaintances and friends. The morning of and the day of, we had a local festival here in town that I went to, and would get text messages from this gentleman that was inviting me to go out fishing and just confirming that I was coming. And it wasn't until 5 o'clock that evening till I made it out to go fishing with them. I was looking forward to this trip, no uneasy feelings, and as I confirmed with him that I was making it out, it was only about 15 minutes from where I was living at the time. As I showed up, everything seemed normal. He was already there for the day fishing out on the lake. He had came up to the boat dock, and I just hopped on to the boat with him. As we were beginning to fish, we were able to catch some fish in some different areas. He was a very good fisherman and knew the lake very well as far as where to go for the fish. As the evening was coming to an end and it started to get dark, we began to go back to the shoreline, and at this time too, he said, "Oh, I lost a fishing pole," and we turned back around to go look for. He said it was a float, like it had a floater on it that would be up on the water. Well, as it started dusk and beginning to get darker, we went back into this deep part of the lake where there's a lot of lilies, and you're trying to go through the lilies and look for this fishing pole, and obviously nothing was coming about. It began to get darker and darker, and then actually the moon had came out, and he had sat down to eat a lunch, eat a sandwich, smoke a cigarette. And as I'm telling him, I really want to go back to the dock, I like to get home now, it turned into shut up and sit down because we're not going home. He began to threaten me during my life as I was on the boat. We're nowhere near anywhere at shoreline, and as he began to threaten me with a weapon, that he told me to shut up and sit down, that I'm not out here to fish anymore. You're gonna do what I say, or your life will be taken from you as well as your family. As I was processing this information in my head, all I could think of is I was just entered into the worst nightmare of my life, the one I'm not gonna wake up from. At that moment, all I could do is pray to God out loud. And as I prayed out loud, and my perpetrator told me, that's not gonna help you in this situation. I'm not gonna help you now. Your God's not gonna help you. As that followed, he told me to take off my clothes. He told me to turn around. He slapped me in the head, I remember, a couple times. And as the night began, he began to assault me through as well as telling me to do oral on him, the things that I was not comfortable with. Obviously, I don't want any of this to happen, but it gave me no choice as I'm on a boat in the middle of a lake. There's no one to scream out to. There's nowhere to just jump in the lake and swim to shore and run away. At this point, I'm naked. I have no clothes on. As the night went on, this went on once an hour. I can remember it was a chilly night as well. He provided a rain suit for me to put on to warm up with. He would hold me as if it was an intimate relationship, and it was not. He told me it wasn't my fault, sorry that he had to choose me, and he just began to tell me these things, hopefully to make me feel better, but obviously being in this situation at around 5:30 in the morning, he took me over to this little island that was on the lake and forced me to get off as he took the boat back to shore to check out his vehicle and get, I guess, food, or he brought back stuff that he brought back to the boat and came and grabbed me off of the island, and then proceeded to go to a different part of the lake and docked his boat on the shore. As we got off the boat, started to walk through the woods. We're in the middle of this Hiawatha National Forest in the Upper Peninsula, and the woods go on for quite a while. So we began to walk through the woods. He was trying to get back to his truck. We walked around for 3 to 4 hours. In the meantime, I'm in this rain stew with these muck boots on that were beginning to scrape up my feet. The mosquitoes are everywhere. We began to walk and we'd get lost, or it seemed like we'd get lost. And he was trying to find his way back to his truck. Eventually, 4 hours after, probably close to noon that day, we found our way back to the truck. And other people were there that morning. He held my hand to make it look like we were, two intimate partners. We got in the truck, went off somewhere, and we dropped off. He had a trailer for his boat still attached to his truck. As we drove away, he went and dumped that off at another lake that was probably about 15 minutes just north of where we're at. And as we dropped that off, he began to proceed going down other dirt roads, 2-track roads in the middle of these woods. I had no clue where we were at. I had only known these main roads. He knew where he was going, but he circled back around close to where I lived at the moment, told me to tell me where I lived at, because eventually we went back. He had said, I'm going to drop you off, I'm going to take you home. So I pointed out, actually another family member's house that lived there, just because I didn't want him to do anything. My dad at the time was living, and he had a stroke, was disabled, as well as my mom was taking care of him full time. So I had pointed out a different relative's house just out of fear that he would eventually go back to my parents' house. So we proceeded to drive to nearby town, about 45 minutes away. The UP is very rural, so sometimes it takes 45 minutes to an hour to get to a bigger city or bigger town. And we proceeded to go through the McDonald's drive-thru. At this point, my mom had been contacted. My phone had died the day before, but I called my mom right before we had left the lake. He had charged his phone in his truck, I believe. And the reception's very, very sketchy in different areas. But I was able to talk to my mom that morning and tell her that we were driving to go get his truck fixed. Can't remember. We were driving to go do something, but I would be home later that day. That was mainly just for him to buy some time and what he knew and what his next step was. After all that, I go back. We're in Gladstone at a McDonald's, going through the drive-thru, got food, and for both of us, drove back to the central UP, the Hiawatha National Forest, and we just sat in a very wooded area, one of the main dirt roads there. We took a nap and just sat there until the nighttime, where he moved again to a different spot at night that he sat again there. And between sitting, there was moments of getting in the back of the truck, and then he would rape me. So as day would break, he would stay parked in spots, but as the week went by, he would go to a 24-hour gas station in another small town close by Rapid River, go to this 24-hour gas station, get gas, food for us. We made our way through the UP, and as just throughout the week, he would ratchet strap me to the seat. So when I'm in these public places that I don't have the chance to run away or get out, and many people ask me why I may have not done more to run away, but the times I would have been able to run away would have been in the middle of the woods, and I wouldn't have been able to go anywhere because I didn't know where I was at. I didn't know what else was out in the woods that could attack me, and then just to have the chance of survival. Most importantly, I did pray each day, and was praying in every moment, and prayed for my perpetrator. I prayed that God would just speak to his heart, and that this situation would finish up pretty quickly, like whatever he's doing, whatever he's thinking because he would promise me each day or say, hey, I'm going to take you home. He'd also tell me that he was going to take me home and then just run himself into the tree and kill himself. I was very open to him about my faith, and I just knew that all I could do was just trust that God would rescue me from this situation. There was a song that would come to mind and say, called Even If by Mercy Me. And it says, it only takes little faith to move a mountain. And that little faith that I held on to, that God would rescue me and that everything would be delivered, is what I held on to. I also, thought about life and where if this doesn't go good or bad, I just never imagined myself being in this kind of situation, and to now be out of the world that we live in freely. I'm in this captive world where I do what I'm told if I want to have a chance to survive. So yes, I was a virgin, so all of the sexual stuff, it was all new to me, obviously, and it wasn't the way I imagined, anything. And to use it for evil, it was very, very disturbing. He took my innocence and took advantage of it because he may have not known I was a virgin. He saw me as an easy prey. He had just came out of prison for 10 years. I was the third victim. I think he was just off of parole too. And I don't believe that he felt like he could continue to live in this world. He just felt like there was nothing that he could do better for himself than repeat this act of crime and go back to jail. I was definitely fearful for my life. I felt at peace point because of my faith and my prayer to God that he would rescue me from the situation. And the most I could try to do was be that witness for Christ for this. My perpetrator became at a point where it too just becomes numb. We're in this situation where he was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde type person. He would be mean to me and say nasty things or hit me, but at the same time, he would turn around and be compassionate, and he would hold my hand and kiss me a couple of times. And it was very shocking to me the way he acted. So I don't know, just his mental state was not stable at that time. In my head, I was wondering when this was going to be finished. So whatever he was trying to figure out what he was going to do with me. At one point, we did go back to his house, parked in the woods, probably about half a mile from his house, and ended up walking toward his house because we had this plan to go get a different vehicle and get some new clothes. Fortunately, that didn't work out because if we had switched cars, I could have been in a different state by now and they wouldn't have had a clue. They possibly would have known he had lived with his mom, and she might have been able to give information on the vehicle to be on the lookout for. But looking back at everything, he was playing it day by day, time by time, figuring out what he was going to do. Like I said, I don't think he felt like he could go on with life without not doing this again to someone, being able to move on, knowing that he had a past and that he wasn't able to be redeemed from that past. So he felt like he had to attack another woman and go from there as far as if he decided to commit suicide or just spend the rest of his life in prison. So after the 6 days, after being driven around, parking in different spots, we were actually heading out of this 2-track road. And then when he heard the report come across the radio, he automatically turned around and went back to park for the night. And as we were continuing just to move at night, we parked in one spot 3 or 4 times, and I was able to kind of keep up with the direction we were going and where we were at. But as the 6 days were coming to an end, we were up at early Friday morning of July 14th. We're heading to a gas station. The cops had found out that he was buying things from these 24-hour gas stations. There's only so many that are open up 24-hour in the UP. We drove in to Munising, Michigan, actually Wetmore, Michigan, and there's a gas station there that wasn't open yet. So we didn't stop there. We went into Munising, Michigan, and We stopped at the Shell gas station. And as soon as we pulled up, they had recognized the truck, recognized him. At that point, I was ratchet strapped to the front seat to not be able to make him escape. And as he went into the gas station, I was told that he was thrown straight to the floor and taken into custody. And as all that was going on, the truck was parked in the back of the gas station, and there was another undercover detective that approached the vehicle, and it made me nervous because I didn't know what was going on in the gas station. But I paused for a second because I'm in that survival mode, just making sure that I'm not going to anger my perpetrator. I'm not going to bring attention to the scene. But anyways, the gentleman that was the undercover detective came up and said he was there to rescue me and that everything is okay. And just at that moment, I let every tear out that I had held it for that week. I never got emotional in front of my perpetrator. And I think that's really what kind of frustrated him as well. But at that moment, that undercover detective came and said, "I'm here to rescue you." That's when every emotion just started to flow out. So at that moment when I was found, I just knew that my prayers, and as I was praying for people that were looking for me and people that I knew would be lifting me up in prayer to stay strong, had come true, had been the miracle that I was waiting for, the proof that my God was real and that He was able to deliver me from this and rescue me in the mission. The thing about my faith is that I mentioned I went to church as a kid growing up, and then as I would just go through the prayer of salvation so many times and not really have that heart change in me. And I've always been hesitant sometimes about my faith because before I moved to the Upper Peninsula, I had these whispers that would come into my ear, and only Satan whispers to you and tells you lies. And he would tell me, "Are you really saved? Do you really know God? Do you really put your faith in Him?" After this event in my life, this horrific event where I never thought I would be put to the test or put in a situation that I know my God is real and my relationship with Him is 100% there. After going through such a event in my life that I'm ready to share with other people, to help other people, and hopefully one day too that if they don't already put their faith in God, because He is the miracle worker in our lives, and we have a lot to be thankful for what He's done for us already and what He's going to do for us. This event has proved that my faith in God is real, that my relationship with Him and that I trust in Him 100%. But also it gives me an alternative perspective here as we live our life each day. To trust people that we think are trustful, just to have that simple trust to be able to do things and not have to be fearful of what the outcome is going to be. We see it all the time on the news, and then that also puts more fear in you that, well, this could happen to me anytime too. I think being able to just have that different perspective kind of limits me now from what I want to be participating in. It definitely gives me a different perspective on people in general, but at the same time, I'm called to love them and to bring forgiveness to. And at the sentencing, I was able to give a victim's impact statement to my perpetrator and be able to tell him that I forgive him, because as a follower of Christ, I'm able to show that forgiveness and hope that, even through the things that He's done to me and to other women, that he can seek forgiveness for himself and that he can have that relationship with God as well. This situation gives me a strength to tell my story, because he wasn't able to defeat me in the sense of killing me or bringing me down. I think that I'm meant to share my story more, to share with someone that is struggling with their own story, to be a survivor, to fight for their own story,